The morning sun had just begun to stretch its arms across the African plains. A soft mist rose from the river, blurring the line between water and sky. Everything was alive yet still. The air carried the hum of dragonflies, the distant grunts of hippos, and the rhythmic chirping of weaver birds building their nests in the trees. For a moment, it felt like the world itself was breathing in peace. But that peace was fragile. The wild always was. Down by the river's edge, a baby rhino named Nuru stumbled through the tall reeds. His thick gray skin glistened with morning dew, and his tiny horn, barely the length of a thumb, caught the sunlight like a drop of silver. He was clumsy and curious, forever drawn to the rippling reflections on the water. His mother, Amara, stayed close, her massive body moving with a patience that only mothers know. Every so often, she nudged him with her broad snout, gentle reminders to stay near, to stay safe. Nuru squealed in delight when he found a puddle left behind by last night's rain. He stomped in it, sending muddy splashes high into the air. The sight made a group of egrets lift off in a flurry of white wings, circling above the pair like drifting snow. Amara snorted softly, lowering her head to graze, pretending not to notice his antics. But her ears stayed alert, turning with each new sound. The river was calm that morning, its surface smooth like polished stone. But beneath that stillness, danger always slept. A pair of crocodile eyes floated just above the waterline, motionless, ancient, patient. The reptiles had learned long ago that the savanna always brought the careless and the young to drink. And the young rarely saw the warning signs in time that a breeze drifted in from the west, carrying the scent of wet earth and acacia flowers. It also carried something heavier, a storm brewing beyond the hills. The air thickened, warm and electric. The clouds in the distance built upon each other like mountains of smoke. Even the birds seemed to sense it. Their songs softened, replaced by the distant roll of thunder. Far from the river, on a rocky ridge overlooking the floodplain, a lion stood watching. His name was Kuma. He was young, but the scars across his muzzle spoke of battles fought too soon. Once, he belonged to a powerful pride. Now he wandered alone. Hunger had hollowed his frame, but not yet his spirit. He watched the rhino calf with an expression that was neither hunger nor hatred, just a deep, wordless longing. Kuma's golden mane ruffled in the wind as the first drops of rain began to fall. The scent of prey and rain mixed in the air, calling every creature to listen. He took a slow step forward, then stopped. He knew the river could turn cruel when storms came. And something about the sight of that baby, stumbling, innocent, completely unaware, stirred something quieter than instinct inside him. Back at the riverbank, Nuru was busy chasing butterflies. Their wings flashed orange and blue above his head, just out of reach. He followed them farther than usual, his tiny feet sinking into the soft, wet ground. His mother raised her head. She gave a warning grunt, low, deep, filled with meaning. He paused, glancing back. For a second, he seemed to understand. But curiosity tugged harder than caution. The butterflies floated toward the water's edge, and Nuru followed. The storm clouds darkened. Lightning flashed across the horizon, lighting the plains in a burst of white. The river, once calm, began to stir. Ripples widened into small waves. The crocodiles sank beneath the surface, their shapes vanishing like ghosts. Amara began to move, slowly at first, then faster, pushing through the reeds to reach her son. Her heavy feet sank deep into the mud as she called out again, louder this time. Nuru turned, startled by the sound, but his footing slipped. The riverbank crumbled beneath him, and suddenly, he was in the water. The splash shattered the morning stillness. Amara's bellow tore through the air, a deep, trembling roar that echoed off the trees. She charged forward, her massive horn breaking through reeds and branches. The water foamed where her baby had fallen, but the current was stronger than it looked. Nuru tried to swim, his tiny legs kicking wildly, his eyes wide with panic. The river pulled at him, spinning him in circles, dragging him farther away from the safety of the bank. Kuma heard the cry. His head snapped toward the river, muscles tensing. From the ridge, he could see the gray shape of the baby being swept downstream, the mother crashing through the shallows in a desperate chase. The lion hesitated. His instincts screamed opportunity, the weak, the drowning, the alone. Yet something else held him still. Maybe it was the sound, that raw, breaking sound that only a mother makes when her child is in danger. Rain began to fall in thick sheets. The wind whipped through the grass, bending it low. The river roared louder now, no longer a peaceful stream but a brown, furious serpent twisting through the land. Amara lunged into the current, but even her strength could not match the flood's force. She was driven back, coughing and shaking the water from her eyes. She watched helplessly as Nuru's small form was carried away, his cries fading into the storm. The Savanna darkened under the storm clouds. Thunder rolled overhead, and lightning struck a tree near the ridge, splitting it open with a crack that echoed for miles. Kuma flinched but did not move from his perch. His amber eyes tracked the baby's struggle as the river swept Nuru closer to a fallen branch jutting from the current, a deadly trap. One wrong turn, and he would be pinned beneath it, helpless. The lion's tail flicked. His ears flattened. Something inside him, something deeper than hunger, began to stir. The scene froze in time. The rain, the roaring water, the mother's cries echoing through the storm. Life and death hung by a single heartbeat, and somewhere between the thunder and the wind, the wilderness whispered its eternal truth, that mercy and cruelty are both part of its law. Kuma took one final breath. Muscles coiled beneath his drenched fur, eyes fixed on the river below. Then, without another thought, the young lion stepped off the ridge and began his descent toward the chaos. The storm swallowed him whole. The camera would linger there, on the empty ridge. The broken tree, the endless rain washing across the plains, as the sound of rushing water faded into silence. Because in the wild, every calm carries a warning, and every river, no matter how gentle, hides a story waiting to rise. The world had turned wild. Rain poured from a sky torn open by thunder, slamming against the savanna like 1,000 drums. The peaceful river that once reflected the golden morning now raged like a wounded animal. Brown, swollen, and violent, it tore through reeds and roots, dragging everything in its path toward the unknown. And caught in that chaos was Nuru. His small body spun helplessly in the current, his cries swallowed by the roar of the storm. Water splashed over his face, filling his nostrils with mud. He kicked and twisted, trying to find something solid beneath him. But there was nothing, only the cold, crushing grip of the river on the bank. Amara, his mother, charged through the floodwater, her massive frame heaving with desperation. Every step was a battle. The mud pulled at her legs, the current shoved her sideways. Her deep bellows shook the air, a sound that cut through thunder, through fear, through everything. But the river didn't care. It kept pulling her child farther away. For a moment, lightning lit the world white. Nuru's tiny horn flashed above the surface, then disappeared behind a wall of debris. Amara lunged forward, her horn slicing through the water, her eyes wide and burning with terror. She reached the edge of a steep drop. The river had carved a new channel overnight. The ground beneath her hooves gave way, and she stumbled, barely catching herself before the current claimed her too. The mother rhino could only watch as her calf vanished downstream. The wind screamed through the reeds. Rain blurred the horizon into a smear of gray. Somewhere above, vultures circled, not yet landing, but waiting, far downstream, on a rocky rise overlooking the river. Kuma the lion stood in the storm. His mane hung heavy with rain, plastered against his neck. His ribs showed beneath his wet fur, sharp and thin. Hunger had been his only companion for weeks. The world had been cruel since he was exiled from his pride. Hunger had taught him that survival doesn't wait for mercy. Below him, the river twisted violently between the trees, carrying branches, reeds, and the small gray body of a baby rhino. Kuma's eyes narrowed. A meal like that could keep him alive for days. His muscles tensed. He lowered himself to the edge of the rock, watching, waiting. The rain washed the blood scent of old hunts from his fur, leaving only the clean, metallic taste of water and wind. But when Nuru's body rolled over in the current, Kuma saw movement. The baby was still alive. His legs thrashed, his eyes wide and wild. He wasn't prey yet. He was fighting. For a moment, the lion's mind split in two. Hunger growled inside him, the old voice of the wild, the law of survival. But another feeling, quieter and strange, began to rise beneath it. Kuma saw himself in the drowning calf, small, helpless against the storm, thrown away by a world that didn't care who lived or died. Lightning cracked again, revealing Nuru being pulled toward a fallen tree, half submerged and deadly. Its branches stuck out like spears. If the baby hit it, he wouldn't surface again. Kuma stepped closer. The rain hit his face, sharp as glass. His claws dug into the mud. He growled under his breath, not at the rhino, not even at the storm, but at the impossible choice forming inside him. The law of the wild was simple: kill or starve. Yet at that moment, staring down into the flood, something inside him broke that law. With a roar swallowed by thunder, Kuma leapt from the ridge. The fall was short but brutal. He hit the water with a splash that sent up a wall of mud and foam. The current seized him instantly, dragging him under, twisting him end over end. He fought to surface, claws scraping at nothing. His mane pulled him down like a weight. The cold bit through his skin. When he broke through the surface again, gasping, Nuru was only a few meters away, his head barely visible, his eyes wide with terror. Kuma kicked hard, using the power in his shoulders to push through the current. He roared, the sound muffled by the rain, but it reached the baby like a call. Nuru flailed weakly, his strength almost gone. Kuma swam closer, his massive paws cutting through the water. The tree loomed ahead, sharp branches spinning, waiting. The lion lunged, clamping his jaws gently around the rhino's neck. The taste of mud and fear filled his mouth. For a second, his instincts screamed at him to bite harder, to end it, to survive. But he didn't. Instead, he pushed upward, using every ounce of his strength to lift the baby's head above the water. The current slammed them against the log. The impact sent pain shooting through Kuma's side. He lost his grip for a second, then caught it again, this time with his paws wrapped around the trunk. He roared, more in defiance than fear, fighting both the river and his own instincts. Little by little, inch by inch, he pulled Nuru free of the tangle of branches. The baby coughed and gasped, spitting out water. Kuma turned his body, shielding the calf from the current, guiding him toward the shallows. Every step was agony. His muscles burned, his lungs screamed for air. But he didn't stop. Not when the current tugged at his legs. Not when the mud tried to suck him back. Not when lightning struck the water in the distance. He pushed forward until his paws touched solid ground. Then, with one final heave, he lifted the baby rhino onto the bank. Nuru collapsed in the mud, trembling and gasping. Water streamed off his small body as he coughed and whimpered softly. Kuma stood over him, chest heaving, sides covered in mud and scratches. His golden eyes blinked through the rain, fixed on the tiny creature that had nearly drowned behind them. The river raged on, carrying away branches, leaves, and the wreckage of the storm. The lion didn't move. He stood still, as if guarding the baby from the very thing he was supposed to be. His breath came slow now, each exhale turning to mist in the cold air. Then, a sound through the rain. A deep, trembling call. Amara, the mother rhino's silhouette, appeared through the downpour, her horn glinting with lightning. She charged through the reeds, eyes wide with terror until she saw him, her calf, alive, trembling, but safe. Her gaze shifted to the lion. For a heartbeat, the world froze. Kuma lowered his head, not in submission, but in something like understanding. He took a slow step back. Amara moved forward, placing herself between him and her child. She didn't charge, not yet. She only stared, her massive body trembling with exhaustion and rage and relief all at once. Then, without a sound, Kuma turned. He limped toward the trees, the rain washing away his muddy paw prints as he disappeared into the gray. Amara leaned down and touched her calf's head with her horn. Nuru let out a weak, trembling squeal, the sound of life returning. The river still roared beside them. But for the first time that day, the world seemed to breathe again, and somewhere, deep in the storm, a lion walked alone, not as a hunter, not as a killer, but as something the wild rarely allowed him to be. Merciful, the storm had passed, but its memory still clung to the land. The savanna lay quiet beneath a bruised gray dawn, heavy with the scent of wet earth. Pools of water mirrored the pale light creeping across the horizon, and mist coiled through the reeds like breath returning to a sleeping world. Every leaf, Every blade of grass dripped with silver droplets, tiny reminders of the night's violence. The river, once roaring and wild, now murmured weakly, its fury spent. Near the muddy bend where the flood had raged hardest, a small shape stirred. Nuru, the baby rhino, lay half buried in silt and reeds. His body trembled with exhaustion. His eyes fluttered open, clouded with confusion. His breaths came slow and uneven, chest rising against the weight of waterlogged air. For a moment, he didn't remember where he was, only that everything hurt, and the world around him smelled of mud and fear. Then, a shadow moved beside him. A great lion, drenched and shivering, lifted his head. His mane clung to his neck in heavy ropes of gold and black, and each breath he took came out in misty bursts. It was Kuma, the same lion who had once stood on the ridge, watching the river from afar. Now he lay here, beside the creature he could have killed, his sides marked with scratches from branches, his muscles trembling from fatigue. All night, Kuma had stayed by the calf, half awake, fighting the cold and his own instincts. At one point, when jackals had circled in the darkness, he had risen with a low growl and placed himself between them and Nuru. The predators vanished into the shadows, leaving the lion and the rhino alone beneath the whispering rain. Now the storm had gone, but silence pressed in from all sides. Kuma's golden eyes blinked open. He turned his head toward Nuru and gave a soft rumble, not the sound of a hunter, but of something gentler, almost curious. Nuru twitched at the noise. His small ears flicked, his nostrils flaring as he caught the lion's scent, sharp, wild, and warm. Too weak to move, he simply blinked back, unsure if this was safety or danger. For a long time, they stayed like that, predator and prey, both too tired to fear each other. The light grew stronger as the sun broke through the thinning clouds. Golden rays spilled across the grass, touching the lion's mane and the baby rhino's wet skin until they seemed carved from the same morning light. A bird called softly from a nearby tree, and the sound carried far across the quiet plain. Kuma rose slowly. His legs shook as he stood, but he did not turn away immediately. He looked down at the calf, breathing hard, as though waiting for something, perhaps a sign that the little one would live. Then, from deep within the reeds, a distant call answered him. It was a low, trembling bellow, filled with panic, with longing. Nuru's ears perked up. He recognized it instantly. His mother, far upstream. Amara had searched through the storm's wreckage all night. She had followed the scent of the flood, the broken branches, the trail of her calves' small footprints until they disappeared into the river. Now, guided by instinct and hope, she pushed through the reeds toward the call of her child. When she broke into the clearing, she saw him. Her breath came out in a gasp that turned into a cry, half joy, half disbelief. She charged forward, mud spraying beneath her hoofs. But then she froze. Between her and her baby stood a lion. Amara's heart thundered in her chest. Every muscle in her body tensed, ready to fight. She lowered her head, horn gleaming in the sunlight, and snorted a warning that echoed through the valley. Kuma didn't move. He turned slowly toward her, his golden eyes calm, his head lowered, not in fear, but in quiet understanding. Water dripped from his mane, glinting like fire in the morning light. The air between them felt suspended, heavy with the unspoken language of the wild. For a heartbeat, predator and mother locked eyes. Amara's breath came out in short, sharp bursts. Her calf whimpered softly behind the lion, weak but alive. Kuma's tail flicked once. Then, with a slow exhale, he stepped aside. He didn't roar. He didn't run. He simply turned away. Each step he took left deep paw prints in the wet earth, filling quickly with water. As he reached the edge of the clearing, he paused and looked back one last time. The morning light caught his eyes, not fierce, not hungry, but almost human in their quiet fatigue. And then, he disappeared into the golden grass. Amara waited, her body trembling. When the wind carried no trace of the lion's scent, she rushed forward to her calf. Her massive head lowered, touching Nuru's back with trembling care. He stirred, giving a soft squeak that made her rumble deep in her throat. The sound every mother makes when she finds what she thought was lost forever. She nuzzled him gently, brushing mud from his face with her horn. Nuru leaned into her warmth, his tiny tail flicking weakly. Slowly, She guided him to his feet. His legs wobbled beneath him, but he managed to stand. The first rays of full sunlight broke through the mist, painting the scene in gold. Around them, the world began to breathe again. Frogs croaked, birds sang, and the river's soft murmur returned. Amara and her calf stood together at the water's edge. The reflection of their silhouettes rippled in the muddy shallows, a perfect image of strength reborn from chaos. Far beyond, the tall grass swayed where the lion had vanished. His scent was fading, but his act lingered like a ghost on the wind. For once, the wild had written a story not of hunger or death, but of something rarer, a moment when instinct gave way to mercy. The camera of the mind pulls back. The savanna stretches endlessly under a sky washed clean by rain. The river glimmers like a silver thread cutting through the land. Life continues, unbroken, unending, forever circling back from chaos to calm. The narrator's voice would fall soft now, almost a whisper against the hum of the morning. In a world where survival often means taking, sometimes the greatest strength lies in giving. That morning, the lion chose mercy, and the wild was never quite the same. The camera would linger on Nuru and his mother one last time, the baby resting against her side, the light warming their backs. The wind passes over the plain, carrying the scent of rain, of grass, of life renewed, and somewhere beyond the reeds, the lion walks alone, disappearing into the sunlit silence, his shadow stretching long across the awakening earth.